Alright, question number 2 comes from Katarina. Hi Sebastian, I discovered your channel only a few months ago, but I'm officially obsessed and my fragrance budget has dramatically increased in the meanwhile. Your passion and love for fragrances comes through the screen, and your ability to describe scents is absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for the work you put in these videos, they make my day. I watched a video in which you described how you got into perfumes and I could see myself in some of your memories. I'm Italian. I love the fragrances of the 80s and 90s. To me, a fragrance should reflect one's personality, and my personality is not a whisper, so my fragrance shouldn't be either. I used to wear Fiji and Magie Noir back then, which weren't really age appropriate, but I want to believe I pulled them off. I have a question for you. I'm a fan of feminine classic fragrances. I've been using Dior's New Look 1947, which I love, but I'm disappointed by its performance. Since you have such an encyclopedic knowledge of fragrances, could you recommend similar fragrances? Not necessarily new as long as it's still in production, but possibly stronger and more persistent. Again, thank you very much for your channel. You're the much needed escape during these times. All the best, Katarina. So that is a request for alternatives to New Look 1947 from Dior. Here's a bottle that I've had for a while. It's kind of getting really low. This is the version before they re-released the collection in 2018, I believe. It's a amber floral, which is what I would call this particular style. And it features lots of flowers with ambery notes, vanillic resinous touches. So it features jasmine, benzoin, vanilla, ylang ylang, tuberose, rose, among many other notes in this particular fragrance. I do enjoy this fragrance. It's a nice warm fragrance with that kind of freshness from the flowers. So it's a nice contrast to the fresh floral smells of all the different flowers in here, to the warmth of the vanilla and the benzoin, which creates the ambery touches. That's why it's called an amber floral. So she's asking for some classics, and I personally would not recommend classics, because a lot of the classics, if you're going to get their current formulations, they're going to be pretty watered down. Just like Dior New Look 1947, it's from a designer, it's the current release, but she's having a problem with its performance. So I'm going to go right to some more modern alternatives for this. They're not going to be identical, but they're definitely amber floral fragrances. We're going to start off with PANOUGE's DATURA AMARETTI from their Matière Libre collection of fragrances. This is an amber floral fragrance, and it's quite delicious. It features almonds, it's got datura flower, biscuit accord, cherries, ylang ylang, so kind of sort of similar notes, but then again not really. Datura flower is a very unique and distinct smell, which is captured here perfectly. And then of course you've got that ylang ylang, which is also present in the New Look 1947, but this one also has cherry, so it's a bit fruitiness. And then of course it's got that biscuit accord. There are some more ambery notes in this particular fragrance as well, some vanillic touches, but it's definitely, I would call it a gourmand floral, but an amber floral for sure. It's definitely got the ambery touches, and I feel like this is definitely much more longer lasting in general to something like Dior New Look 1947. It's also pretty modern, and again, these fragrances I'm going to recommend here in this video, in this question, are going to be definitely more modern fragrances as an alternative to New Look 1947, and they're not identical. Again, they're just kind of the similar style of amber floral fragrances that I would think that would make great alternatives to Dior New Look 1947. The next recommendation as an alternative for Dior's New Look 1947 will be Tanis Tabac from Nilafar du Nil. This is a fairly inexpensive fragrance. It's got that beautiful tobacco blossom with the Egyptian jasmine. There's also Casablanca lily. So it's a floral bomb in general, but it also has some light dirtiness from the tobacco-ish touches in here. And of course, very much woods and lots of amber with this one. So there's definitely a warmth contrasted with the freshness. Definitely very feminine, but I think a man can totally pull this one off. And it smells fantastic, I think, if you like the idea of a tobacco blossom, something a little different with the jasmine and the lily. The lily is definitely really prominent in here. You'll definitely notice it, but as I said, it eventually becomes ambery warm and a bit spicy as it's drying down. Some light dirtiness, as I said, as well. So Nilafar Tanis, it's actually Nilafar du Nil Tanis Tabac. So another one that I would recommend is Ylang in Gold by M. Mikolov. This is definitely a beautiful ylang ylang warmed up with the vanilla and coconut. It's definitely very musky as well, and it's got sandalwood and fruity notes, but definitely the ylang ylang is really prominent here. For me, ylang ylang has a kind of a beachy, solar, kind of banana-ish vibe when I smell it. So here it takes on a kind of a gourmand characteristic because it also has coconut and it also has that vanilla. So it's definitely a great you know, alternative for the Dior New Look 1947. If you guys don't know that one, do check it out. Something really, really intense is Borea from the house of Tiziana Terenzi. And all their fragrances are very, very, you know, long-lasting. They're extrait de parfum concentration, and this one, once again, is definitely a great amber floral fragrance. This one also has fruitiness. It also has kind of a beachy, coconutty vibe, and then also nuttiness as well. So it's kind of a very unique experience, but lots of flowers and definitely an ambery touch. It dries down to kind of an amber woody thing here. So it's Borea from Tiziana Terenzi. And then we've got the House of the Spirit of Dubai with Turath. Oh man, this is such a delicious fragrance. I don't know if you guys know this one. Also very, very complex. Layers and layers and layers of notes. It wears very, very complex, very, very long lasting. There's dried fruits here, oud rose, strawberry, apples, peaches, additional fruits and amber and spices and vanillic touches. It's just a really, really complex, beautiful amber floral fragrance. And also fruity as well. Definitely we've got fruity touches and also a bit of gourmand touches as well. So this is a great, great fragrance. This is Turath from the Spirit of Dubai. And one of my favorite AMOUAGEs, I would consider this as an amber floral fragrance. It's kind of a gourmand lilac fragrance. It's Lilac Love from AMOUAGE. Really delicious. Really, really yummy. The lilac and the cacao in here kind of really work wonderfully together. And it's not chocolatey, it's more cacao. You're actually wearing the sprinklings of cacao on lilacs, kind of a thing, you know? But there's also heliotrope here, gardenia, tonka beans, vanilla orris. It's a yummy fragrance, definitely recommend it. I highly recommend this one. This is my favorite feminine fragrance in the AMOUAGE collection. So that is Lilac Love. And then we've got Xerjoff's 400. This is a really yummy fragrance, and again, this is also tobacco, kind of a tobacco blossomy kind of fragrance. They don't really credit the notes for this collection, which is Join the Club from Xerjoff, but I do get kind of a tobacco, floral, tobacco kind of a thing, a bit of dirtiness. But this one also has honey, it has vanilla, orange blossom, bitter orange, ylang ylang. So it's definitely one of the great, great alternatives for something like Dior's New Look 1947. This is definitely Xerjoff-esque. And also, it's really great with the tobacco, the white tobacco in here. So this is Xerjoff 400. A couple more. We've got 100 Silent Ways from Nishane. Really beautiful fragrance. Really, really wonderful. Very long lasting. Beautiful vanilla gardenia tuberose combo with sandalwood. And there's a bit of fruitiness there with peach. Smells fantastic. Great on its own, layers perfectly with Hachivat as well. This is 100 Silent Ways. And then the last fragrance from an indie house called FREDERICO Parfums. This is Blooming Amber, this one right here. And it's a great modern indie niche fragrance that is the amber floral style. It features amber, musk, honey, lily of the valley, jasmine, neroli, vanilla, cashmere. A lot of things happening here. There's some citruses, some aromatics, some spices, but a beautiful, very, very beautiful amber floral fragrance. So that is Blooming Amber from FREDERICO Parfums, and hopefully that answers the question that she had about alternatives for New Look 1947, fragrances that are definitely longer lasting than New Look 1947. And I'm sorry I didn't have any options that are classic. I just feel like classic fragrances have just been watered down too much. They're under conglomerates that just don't really want to keep the fragrances as their own. And these are, you know, there's definitely smaller houses, not the big ones that are under conglomerates, so they keep their fragrances pretty consistent, I think. Guys, the video that you just watched is pulled from my long format Your Fragrance Questions Answered video number 5. It's you guys sending me questions to answer, and I compile a list of questions and put one video together, a very long format, an hour to an hour and a half video, and then at the end several weeks, months later, I pull portions of it and air them separately. So I hope you enjoyed that video, but I have some news. I just received some news from my Dior rep and mentioned that unfortunately New Look 1947 is being discontinued. So I wanted to discuss that here today, and then also stay tuned for another video next week. I'll be giving you a list of all the fragrances that are being pulled. This is a USA rep, and this USA sales rep, a person that works for Dior Beauty, mentioned a long list of fragrances, including one of my all-time favorites from the collection. So I'll do that video separately, but just wanted to update you on New Look 1947 today. New Look 1947 was a fragrance I first discovered probably around 2017, maybe 2016. In fact, I have a review of it, an initial review of this fragrance with Dahlia. Those of you that enjoy watching videos with Dahlia, go catch that video. It's pretty early on in my journey in YouTube, and early on when she started doing videos with me. So we enjoy this fragrance because it's a floral bomb in the end, but more of a warm amber, amber floral fragrance. That's why the question that I read earlier was asking for similar options, and I felt like other amber floral fragrances would be perfect for this fragrance. So I enjoy the fragrance. It's powdery and also kind of fresh at the same time because these flowers are kind of fresh, and of course it's got benzoin as a note, and benzoin is a resin. It's kind of vanillic, it's sweet, it's resinous, it's balsamic. So you've got this fusion of fresh flowers with this kind of warm resinous note to create an amber floral fragrance. It's quite nice. I really like this fragrance. It does lean feminine. It's very, very powdery, and sadly it's being discontinued. So the sales rep told me that he is uncertain if this is globally or if it's just here in the States, but according to him it's definitely being pulled, and right now they have stock. But once the stock runs out, they will no longer have New Look 1947. So New Look 1947 was a fashion movement by Dior, I believe. So in the end, they have made a fragrance inspired by that fashion movement. I think it's a fashion movement. I almost went to fashion school way long ago, but more than that, I decided to go into photography and filmmaking. But no, I enjoyed this fragrance a lot, and if you're a fan of this one, definitely go get yourself a bottle. I don't think this one will sell out really fast. I don't think it's one of the most popular fragrances from Dior, but I think it has its fans, obviously, especially to receive a question asking for alternatives of this particular fragrance. Also, I should say, it's funny that I ended up covering this fragrance, New Look 1947, in that Your Fragrance Questions Answered video, and also in that same video I also answered a question about Gris Dior, and each time I aired my individual video I've added an additional section at the end because there's some stuff that came up about it. With the Gris Dior, we had the whole ad campaign with the actress that played Wednesday, and then now we have this news with this fragrance that it's being discontinued. But either way, stay tuned. Next week I'll do a whole video on a whole handful of fragrances that are being pulled from Dior Privee. I personally think they had way too many fragrances in that collection to begin with, and a lot of them were so fresh and floral focused, overlapping from one another. They seemed very similar to another. I'm glad they're getting rid of some of them, but I'm really disappointed that one of my favorites is being finally pulled. So stay tuned for that video. As I said, I'll be doing that video soon, but in the meantime, if you're a fan of New Look 1947, call your Dior reps at the department stores and get yourself a bottle, because apparently, according to my sales rep, this is being pulled and it'll be gone after the stock has run out. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye-bye.